Hello everyone, this is Rick and today we are going to start a new video series on the Vedic Age. Now in this video series we will discuss about the archaeological and the literary sources of the Vedic period along with the different complexities involved in the Vedic culture. So this will be an introductory video on the series where we will discuss about history through Vedas. What are the Vedas and what kind of history we can learn from the Vedas. So without doing any delay, let's get into details. At first, we will have to know the shift in historical narratives. What are the narratives about the Vedas and what were the cultural shifts on the narratives of the Vedic period? Historiography of ancient India traditionally relied on archaeological evidence. So the writing of the historical period of ancient India did not survive since it was written on perishable materials. That is why the historians, while deciphering the ancient Indian history, had to rely on the archaeological evidences available to them. A decisive shift has occurred when emphasizing Vedic texts, specifically when they support archaeological hypotheses. So a decisive shift has occurred towards emphasizing Vedic texts, specifically when they support the archaeological hypothesis. This has led to a focus on the north and northwestern regions, often sidelining other geographical areas. So mainly the civilizational history of Indian subcontinent suggests that civilization started in the northwestern part of Indian subcontinent and slowly it has spread towards the central and the eastern part. Now, when we are discussing about the Vedas, it normally focuses on the ancient history of north and northwestern regions of the Indian subcontinent, and thus the other geographical areas of the whole Indian subcontinent seems to have been sidelined. There is significant archaeological evidences for this period in the form of Neolithic, Chalcolithic, early Iron Age culture, which is often overlooked. But in this video series, we will discuss about the archaeological aspect of the Vedic period also. These cultures provide valuable insights into the lives of ordinary people from 2000 to 5000 BC. Now, this was the Vedic period from 2000 to 500 BC, and it had started with the early Vedic age and later on it has shifted towards the later Vedic culture. Hence, we will discuss both of them in detail. Now, the complexity of Vedic literature. Vedic literature is not a linear narrative where we discuss about a single text. It is a very complex text with high amount of literary emotions in it, which is not at all historical. So to know about the historicity from the Vedas, we will have to interpret them on an impartial and historical perspective. The Vedas, composed over centuries, were not intended as historical records, but it was mainly for ritualistic use. So these are not at all historical texts, and the main purpose of the Vedas were for conducting different kind of religious rituals. Poets known as rishis composed the hymns for creation during for recitation during specific rituals. So the rishis, who were the sadhus or the saints in ancient Indian culture, composed the hymns which were recited according to some specific rituals, and all these hymns collected together make up the Vedas. The primary audience and preservers of these hymns were the Brahmanas, who were the priestly class. So the composer and the primary audience who later on became the preservers of these hymns were the Brahmanas, who are the priestly class in the Vedic culture. Despite their religious nature, When paired with archaeological findings, Vedas serve as a secondary source for understanding the socio-political landscape of Indo-Gangetic Divide and the Upper Ganga Valley. So even though Vedas are not religious texts, when the historicity of the Vedas are compared with the archaeological findings of the period, the Vedas serve as a secondary source for understanding the culture of Indo-Gangetic Divide and the Upper Ganga Valley. The literary evidence is particularly insightful for 2nd and 1st millennia BC. So to understand the cultural aspect of Indian subcontinent in the 2nd and 1st millennia BC, we need to go through the Vedas. Now, dilemma of integration. There was a dilemma to integrate the Vedas in the Indian culture. The integration of Vedic text and archaeological evidence presents a challenge to the historians, because in Vedic text many things are written which we do not find any archaeological evidence. So to combine both of them and to bring out the historical past of the Vedic period, it is very difficult challenge to the historians. Vedic literature offers rich insight but is subjective and filtered through religious and philosophical perspectives. It does not give any particular story which is very much relatable to the past. It gives us historicity on the perspective of religious and philosophy, sometimes even mythology. So to extract the historicity from it is very difficult. The archaeology provides physical remnants offering tangible yet partial account of history. So from the archaeology we do not get any kind of fixed historicity. Whatever archaeological sources are there, they are tangible and they provide a partial account of history only. Conflicts between literary descriptions and archaeological data can lead to constructing interpretations of the past. So as we have discussed that many things are mentioned in the Vedas of which we do not find any archaeological evidence. Hence there has been a conflict between the literary descriptions in the Vedic text and that of the archaeological artifacts available from that period. A careful juxtaposition of these sources is necessary for a comprehensive historical understanding. So we cannot take everything we see in the Vedas as history, neither can we accept everything archaeological as complete data. We need to combine both of them and carefully analyze in order to get a comprehensive historical understanding of the Vedic culture. The Vedic corpus as a historical source. So how do the Vedas serve as a historical source? The Vedic corpus, primarily preserved by the Brahmanas, is not a popular narrative but a specialized literary work. So this is, Vedas are not very popular, but as a specialized literary work it has great importance, and throughout thousands of years it has been preserved very much properly by the Brahmanas and other religious people of the subcontinent. The oldest surviving manuscript is the Rig Veda, which dates back to approximately 11th century CE. Now this is not to be confused with the composing period of the Rig Veda. The text itself probably date back to 1500 to 1000 BC. So for all these years, how was it preserved? The Rig Veda is the oldest book, is organized into 10 books which are popularly called as mandalas, with books 2 to 7 known as family books due to their association with specific priestly families. So book 2 to 7 within the 10 books, we have from book 2 to book 7, they are called the family books, and it is called such because it has a specific association towards the priestly families of those period. And for about 2000 years the Vedas were not written down. It was preserved in the memory of the subcontinent through a process known as Shruti and Smriti, means where the people used to hear all the things and they used to remember and pass it to their next generation. Hymns within Rig Veda follow a discernible pattern suggesting a complex compilation process. So it is not a unilinear narrative. The hymns follow a discernible pattern, and thus there is a very complex compilation process of the Vedas. The presence of interpolations within the Vedic text indicates later additions hinting at evolving religious and social contexts. So Vedas were not composed in a single period in one sudden day by a single author. There were many more editing done in the later period in the form of addition, and thus all this evolution of the Vedas suggests that the society had a evolving and religious process. Next up, we have how to analyze the Rig Veda. How was the oldest text in the Indian subcontinent analyzed? The family books of Rig Veda are considered as the oldest part of the text. So from book 2 to 7 are the family books of Rig Veda, and they are related to specific priestly families or specific priestly classes. Hence they are considered to be the oldest part of the Rig Vedic text. The later books, namely number 1, number 8, 9 and 10, contain newer hymns alongside older ones, suggesting a lengthy period of composition. So all the other part of the Rig Veda other than the family books were composed later, thus suggesting that the composition of Rig Veda was done through a long period of time. Some hymns are assigned to a later date due to their content reflecting different ideological currents or originating from distinct geographical regions. So some hymns are out of context in the Vedas, and thus we can understand that they have different ideological currents, and also they may have been from different geographical regions. The arrangement of hymns reflects deliberate modifications and effort to codify diverse traditions. So the main motto or the main motivation behind writing the Rig Veda was to codify diverse traditions existing in the Vedic culture. The language and the hymns of the Rig Veda have been modified over time, indicating a dynamic process of cultural and religious evolution. So the whole book has been edited numerous times with many additions, and thus it indicates that we had a dynamic process of religious evolution. Now, historical context of the Vedic text. What were the historical context? The Vedas have been used by various historians to construct different narratives of the Indo-Aryans. So Indo-Aryans are very popular classes among the historians, and Vedas have been used to construct the history of the Indo-Aryans. Nationalist historians extracted details that idealize the Vedic age, while others adopted a more balanced anthropological approach. So nationalist historians always considered old Indian traditions to be the supreme ones. Hence, they idealized the Vedic age, while other historians approached the Vedic age in an anthropological manner. The recent studies by scholars like Witzel and Romila Thapar offer nuanced textual analysis and advocate for considering regional archaeological data. So different other historians have also supported the analyzation of Veda by corroborating the facts with that of the archaeological data available in the period. It is critical to recognize the specific geographical context of the Vedic text and the substantial archaeological data available for those regions. So it is very much critical, it is very much essential to consider both the literary evidences in the Vedic text and that of the archaeological data available from the period in order to understand the history. The holistic approach, the complete approach of archaeological and literary analysis helps to avoid pitfalls of unilinear historical and anthropological models. So when we consider both the sources properly while analyzing the Vedic period, we find a very complex system and a very impartial one. Now, debating the Indo-Aryan identity. How far is this Indo-Aryan identity valid? Vedic literature raises question about the identity and origins of the Indo-Aryans. So Indo-Aryans are a popular race. Whether it is true or not is a matter of debate, but Vedic literature raises questions about the identity and origins of the Indo-Aryans. How interpretations of Vedas have led to theories ranging from indigenous development to migrations. So while analyzing the Vedas, we have come across numerous theories, some of which say that we had an indigenous origin and others say that the origin, there was no indigenous origin. People migrated from Central Asia into that of the Indian subcontinent. The geographical core area for the Vedic text likely includes the region of Kurukshetra, Panchala and Upper Ganga Valley. So the geographical area in the Vedic text refers mainly towards the early Mahajanapadas, which were Kurukshetra, Panchala and that of the Upper Ganga Valley. So these are the parts which has been focused mainly in the Vedas. The debate over Indo-Aryan origins spanned for 2 centuries with non-consensus due to complexity and political implications of the discourse. So whether the Indo-Aryans came from outside India or they were the original people of this land is a matter of debate which has been spanning on for 2 centuries, and it is a sensitive political issue, so there has been no concluding effort till today. Scholarly debates continue to evolve, reflecting a shift from race-based theory to linguistic and cultural analysis. So the debate continues and many new interpretations of history give us very new sources, very new evidences of the Indo-Aryans, but it is a matter of debate, and now the debate has been shifted from the concept of race-based theories to linguistic and cultural analysis. Aryan concept, historical and political implications. What were the historical and political implications of this concept called Aryan people? The term Aryan has been misused historically with political and racial overtones. So it has been used and misused repeatedly while writing the history of India, and it has huge political and racial implication on the mind of the people in the Indian subcontinent. In the 19th and 20th centuries, European colonial interpretations of the history heavily relied on the concept of race. So these people, the colonial interpretations during the time of the Britishers, relied on the theory that the Aryans were a race who came from outside of India, mainly from Central Asia, and settled in the Indian subcontinent. Early classifications by scholars, now considered racist, divided humanities into categories like Caucasian, Mongoloid, Negroid, etc. So early classifications which is now considered to be racist, divided human history into categories like Caucasian, Mongoloid, Negroid, etc. But The theory of an Aryan race, particularly the supremacist views associated with it, has been thoroughly discredited. So there has been a view by the early historians that Aryans were a superior race who migrated from Central Asia into India has been discredited. This theory does not have any current value because numerous evidences, numerous new researches in the modern period show that there was not any race called Aryan and they were not supreme, and we all originated from this place itself. Today, Aryan is understood as a linguistic and cultural term apart from the racial one. So, Aryan today is not considered as a race but rather a linguistic and a cultural phenomenon linking to the Indo-Aryans, the largest Indo-European language family. So, it has been considered as a collection of people who has similar linguistic and cultural features. There is no aspect of race theory in this. Linguistic and cultural connections of the Indo-Aryans. Now we will discuss about what are the connections of the Indo-Aryans between different communities of Indo-Aryans in the aspect of culture and language. The word Aryan may derive from the Sanskrit Arya, meaning honorable and cultural identifier, not racial. So the word Arya may have been derived from the Sanskrit word Arya, which means a very honorable and cultural person or a community who are honored and very having a very evolved culture. But this cannot be termed as a racial term. The Indo-Aryans are a part of broader Indo-Iranian group within the Indo-European language family. So the more complex group is the Indo-European language family. Within that there is Indo-Iranian group, and within that there is Indo-Aryan group. This is what the modern research says us, and it is totally based on language and culture, not on race. The debates of original homeland of the Indo-Europeans involve regions such as where there is diversity as the steppes near the Black Sea and regions in Central Asia. So the original homeland, few other historians consider the original homeland of the Indo-Aryans to be the steppes near the Black Sea or the regions in Central Asia. Now this is a highly debatable theory, considering the fact that recent evidences say that the Indian people originated from India itself. The Rig Veda reflects close linguistic collections with Iran, further complicating the narrative. So Rig Veda shows that there is a linguistic connection with that of Central Asian culture like Iran, which further complicates the narrative. The historians and linguists have not reached a consensus on the specifics of Indo-Aryan migrations or their original homeland, and recent evidences also show that this theory may have been imposed by the Britishers on the people of Indian subcontinent for the policy of divide and rule. Vedic text in regional historical context. What are the Vedic texts? How can they be identified with different regions in history? The family books of Rig Veda were composed in the eastern Afghan region and the Punjab in the land of Sapta Sindhu or the seven rivers. So the family books, which are from book 2 to book 7, they have been composed in the area of Afghanistan or northwestern part of Indian subcontinent, which includes the land of Punjab and that of the Sapta Sindhu. The core geographical area likely includes Kurukshetra, Panchala and the upper Ganga valley, which are vital for understanding the Indo-Gangetic divide. So these are the areas which have been focused mainly on the Vedas, that is Kurukshetra, Panchala, upper Ganga valley and the place combined as Indo-Gangetic divide. The Vedic text, while providing historical cues, must be read in the context of specific geographical and cultural settings. So, while the Vedic text provide vital historical information, but still it must be read by corroborating with the geographical and cultural setting of the period. It cannot be interpreted as the original history of India or the combined history of Indian traditions. The availability of substantial archaeological data for these regions helps to provide a more nuanced historical picture. So there are different archaeological data of the Vedic period available, which we will discuss in this video series, but for now the availability of substantial archaeological data helps us to understand the Vedic period in a more detailed manner. It is crucial to avoid long-term unilinear historical narratives and instead focus on the complex multi-layered nature of the Vedic text. So Vedic texts are not straight and transparent. It is very complex with multi-layered diversity shown in the Vedic culture. So that was all about the regional context of the Vedic text. Now, Indo-Aryan debates and theories. What are the Indo-Aryans debate and theories? The theories of Indo-Aryan origin have evolved over time, reflecting changes, scholarly perspective and political climates. So many historians, there are different classes of historians who have tried to interpret this debate in a different manner, and they have modified it according to suit their own purpose. In the 19th century, the theories often promoted the idea of Aryan superiority influenced by colonial and racial ideologies. So the 19th century theories, which mainly focuses on the theories that were promoted by the European colonial climate, they show that Aryans were superior in culture and Aryans as a race who were very much superior in their culture and innovations. Modern scholarship rejects these racial classifications and focuses on linguistic, cultural and archaeological evidence. So modern analysis say that Aryans were not a race or they were not at all superior. They were a group of people who had a specific identity in the form of language and culture, and this has been this analysis have been formed based on the archaeological evidences of the period. The relationship between Vedic and Harappan cultures remains a subject of intense academic inquiry. Few archaeologists and historians say that the Harappan culture transformed into the Vedic culture, whereas few say that there is no relationship between the Vedic culture and that of the Harappan period. So this is a matter of intense academic inquiry. The debate includes various theories from Indo-Aryans being indigenous to subsequent migrations influencing the subcontinent. So there are different theories, some of which says that Aryans were a race, others say that Aryans were a community of people who had a certain kind of language and culture. Some historians like to project the fact that Aryans came from outside, they migrated from Central Asia. Others like to project the fact that we had an indigenous origin. But considering the archaeological evidences and modern research, which many of which are very new, it can be there can be no doubt that there was no migration from the outside into the Indian subcontinent. So that was all about the Introduction towards the Vedic Age in the Indian subcontinent. This will be a video series where we will focus about different aspects of Vedic culture which we know both from the literary sources like Vedas, Upanishads, Vedangas, Brahmanas, Aryanakas, all these things, and also we will focus on the archaeological record of the period, which mainly includes Neolithic, Chalcolithic, Neo-Chalcolithic, and also the early Iron Age culture. And to start with, we will also discuss about the archaeological evidences of the late Harappan period. So that was all about the introduction towards the Vedic culture in the Indian subcontinent. As usual, please support me so that I can bring brighter contents in the future and also go through the other videos in the channel. Thank you so much.